Hey everybody, and welcome to our top 3 favorite dungeons from The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Today, me and Nick will be discussing which temple stood out to us the most, whether because of the boss, the music, the puzzles, or really anything else. So let's not waste any time and jump right into this.
Let's start with the Earth Temple. Those who know me know my love of the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time. One of the main reasons I fell in love with this temple is the Mirror Shield. I was so used to the typical C-stick item to unlock every undiscovered area of the temple. So, the Mirror Shield was very different. It was a brilliant concept that was explored pretty well in the game, but Wind Waker did it better. The temple had a nice, creepy vibe to it that opened up more and more with light shining through the dungeon. The combination of using Medley's instrument and Link's Mirror Shield to solve creative puzzles in many different ways. Whether it was bouncing off the light twice, or using it to find hidden items in stone, it would always cause me to think differently to get through the dungeon.
The reason that I love the Earth Temple so much is, well, I love horror games. And for such a fun and innocent game, this temple was actually pretty creepy. Sure, it didn't have the blood-stained walls and enemies that the Shadow Temple from Ocarina of Time did, but it had one of the quirkiest and most entertaining dungeon themes in Wind Waker, at least in my opinion. The Redeads were creepy, fighting the Stalfos for the first time was a lot of fun, and being able to explore with Medley was entertaining to say the least. I'm probably in the minority, and Nick might even disagree, but I loved Medley as a character, so to be able to go spelunking in this spooky temple with her was a great time for me. From the puzzles that required using the Mirror Shield to the boss fight where you get to slice and dice a bunch of running pose, it was a pretty great dungeon.
A common trend of RPG games, which I tend to play a lot, is a trial by some deity or master. It's a test to prove your worth, but most of the time, it just falls flat. I do not feel this way about the Tower of the Gods. I was being tested, but I'm still using the King of Red Lions? That's pretty cool. And it also incorporated the sailing mechanic into the temple itself. Now that was where I was hooked. I might not have been a huge fan of using the command melody constantly throughout the dungeon, but it didn't break the immersion. This temple was so much different than those before it, and then they give you a Zelda classic as its dungeon item, the bow and arrow. I was somehow both in a classic Zelda experience and a completely new one at the same time. What I thought was going to be the Water Temple Round 2 turned out to be one of the most fun parts of the game to me. However, there was one other place that stood out more.
The Temple of the Gods. As cliched as that name sounds, it's still awesome, and the whole idea of this temple is just so much fun. There's no evil boss waiting to be slayed, there's no item here that you need to collect for the purpose of your quest. Your reason for visiting is to prove your worth, prove that you are capable of defeating Ganon. This is shown in the boss fight against Godon. Upon beating this temple, you are granted access to Hyrule Castle, where a whole new quest is ready to begin. Whether it's the awesome track that plays in the background, or the creative puzzles involving mind controlling and moving statues around, this is your first real test as a warrior, and this was the perfect temple to emphasize that point. But as great as it was, there was one dungeon that beat it out in both of our minds.
And number 1 on Mike and I's list of the favorite Wind Waker dungeons is the Forsaken Fortress. Here's a confession. I hated this place the first time I played Wind Waker. I felt so helpless wandering through, and the first mistake, you have to start over at square one. It got repetitive and annoying really quick. To make it better, once you get the sword back, you get kicked off the island. I was pretty mad. Then I played it a second time, and I felt like Solid Snake in Hyrule. In every other Zelda game I've played, I've never had this feeling of hopelessness coupled with an aspect of stealth. I've never been a huge fan of stealth missions either, but it made sense here. You aren't powerful enough to face this danger yet, so you should feel this way. You have to find other weapons in the area to advance before finally getting your sword back. The second time you visit this place, it doesn't stand a chance. You charge in with the Master Sword in hand, even though it isn't powered up, facing cannons and moblins. But now, you are confident and can fight back. That little bit of experience you've gotten in the past few dungeons works both physically in the game and mentally in your mind. The gratification that I had while playing the Forsaken Fortress is one that few games have had the ability to match.
As cool as the first trip was, with the sneaking around and getting your sword back, the second trip to the Forsaken Fortress added a satisfying close to the incredible quest of saving your sister. Your first visit ends with the Helmerach King throwing you halfway across the ocean at the request of Lord Ganondorf. Between this and losing your sword, the first trip was nothing short of a failure. This is exactly why going back the second time, armed with the Master Sword, bombs, and a talking boat, was such an epic revenge story. You storm the castle, defeating all the enemies that you were powerless against last time. You save your sister and get the intense rematch against the Helmerach King. Though it wasn't the toughest boss fight, it was epic, and being able to stick it to the nasty bird was a lot of fun. The mission concluded with Valu burning down Ganon's little hideout, decimating the Forsaken Fortress. What was once a large fortress of unstoppable enemies had been reduced to ashes, and the journey there is so satisfying and rewarding. This is why the Forsaken Fortress takes number 1 on our list. So thanks everyone for watching this video. This was entirely the opinion of me and Nick, so if you disagree and have one that you think should have made the list, let us know. And if there's any other list that you'd like to see us make, be sure to share it with us, because we're always open to new ideas. And if you liked this, don't forget to subscribe for more content. Hope to see you around.